Hey Reef Builders, my name is Remy and I've got a very exciting announcement. Plus today we're gonna head on over to Indianapolis to speak at the INMAS Frag Swap. Plus we're gonna check out one of my good friend Paul's reef tanks and all of his other aquariums. And I'll tell you this, it's unique because he's been running a piece of filtration equipment for the last 21 years. Let's go. Well, first, let's get to that exciting announcement. I have officially joined the Reef Builders team, and we have so much in store for you. I'm excited to contribute alongside some of this hobby's greatest in Mike Pauletta and Richard Ross and Ben Johnson and so many more. I'm honored to be one of many to continue Jake Adams' legacy and to continue his vision with Reef Builders. If you haven't, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification so you know whenever we post new videos. So my buddy Tyler and I just recently went to the INMAS Frag Swap in Indianapolis, and I gotta say, Indy has a great group of reef keepers. We were absolutely blown away by the coral selection and the turnout. Shout out to all the volunteers who made the INMAS Frag Swap a success. While we were at the swap, we met Paul, who offered to show us his aquariums at his home and said that we'd be surprised by his interesting piece of filtration that he's been running on his tank for 21 years. So let's get on over to his house and check it out. All right, in Indianapolis, beautiful tank here in the living room. Paul, thanks for having us over to your house. We appreciate it.
Glad to have you, Remy, on a beautiful, cold, little bit snowy day.
What are the dimensions? How many gallons? And there's a little hidden feature over this way that we want to talk about, but we'll get to that. Tell us about the tank.
So the tank's a standard 180, 72, 24, 24. It does run with probably 220 gallons of actual water because this aquarium is filtered by an echo wheel, which is an algae-based system. So this system has no pumps. It runs on air, like an undergravel filter. And a friend of mine, Chris Lemkako, another Purdue grad, invented this years ago after his dad tried to use various algal turf scrubbers. And basically it just uses an airlift to move this like paddle wheel on a paddle boat, and algae grows on these fins, and usually every 3 weeks I scrape that off with a putty knife and export it, and that's it. So Dr. Addy had done a series of lectures over in Terre Haute at a facility that used his technology, and I went over and saw what they did and got interested, and this just made sense to me. It is very easy. There's no moving parts or fans, just the big pump, and it's run for 21 years. So
that's crazy. So what is retail on something like that?
I think 25 years ago, this thing was $2,500 for the filter.
Yeah.
And that included lighting and the actual unit and the pump. And this is supposed to be good enough for about a 450-gallon aquarium. And the problem I have is lack of nutrients. You could see some of my corals are a little lighter colored, so I've kind of bumped up the number of fish the last 2 years in feedings to kind of add some nutrients and get things to look a little less bleachy. So,
do you think you're the only person in America that has one of these?
I'm pretty sure. So my friend, I lost touch with him for years and did a big 1,500-gallon tank downtown Indy, and he had an office there. Well, he sold his technology to China because the biggest use of energy is treating water, and China has very little infrastructures, electronic, lines, and so they literally will put 50 of these in a village and run the air pump off of solar panels, and they'll purify their drinking water with these.
Wow.
So he kind of got out of this, and he was even kind of like, I want to stay out of the aquarium industry because people know how to, pull out little ideas you have and change it a little, and
yeah.
And
well, I guess from a very rudimentary standpoint, it kind of reminds me of the hang on the back fish filters with the bio wheels on the back. I guess maybe this is just the larger one on steroids.
That's right. They just need to put a little light over that bio wheel, right?
Yeah, yeah. So take us through your tank, your livestock. I noticed you got some clams.
So yeah, I have a couple Duraces. I love Gigas and Durasa just because they live forever, and I don't have as good luck with Maximas and Croceas. So yeah, these two in the tank now, I think they're 7 or 8 years old. They've been in there. They were just a couple inches long. So this is all the original rock I put in 21 years ago. It's all Tonga branch rock, and just I love the openness of it, and fish swim throughs, and so yeah, it's been in there forever. I've just been adding SPS the last couple years because that's kind of what I'm into, and completely changed the lights. This thing started with halides and VHO actinic bulbs, and it's kind of evolved over the years to not real high light. I have 4 Kessels and then these Reef bright strips that come on at different times, and seems to be plenty of light for what I keep. And
yeah, I think this is a good illustration of how everybody does reefing differently, and you don't need the highest powered lights to make a reef happen.
no, because chances are you're going to end up cutting that power back, so you're just, you know, wasting money on a light you don't need, unless you're, you know, doing sticks and growing those at a great rate. So
yeah, you do tank maintenance for a living, right?
yeah, I've had a couple big stores, saltwater only stores, and then after 2008 things really went haywire, and I decided to focus on just doing maintenance. I've always done it, but that's all I do now, set up big reef tanks and go out and maintain them. And
yeah, we won't name any of the celebrities that you maintain, but so what's underneath the cabinet? The whole sump technically is just
so there's
wheel,
no
right?
sump, but this is all it. There's a pipe that goes from this overflow, a 2-inch pipe that brings the water all the way over to the airlift. And for 20 years I brought 5-gallon jugs up and set them up there and siphoned it into the tank for top off, and for some reason I just decided, gosh, I could do a reservoir and do that automatically. So now I only have to fill that thing up every couple of months from my RO in the basement. And so it's simple. No, you know, the smallest pre-filter is those 1/4-inch slits. That's the smallest opening, so there's no fine filter, skimmer. I think they claimed that the proteins would get stuck up here in the frothy foam and get eaten by the algae and that sort of thing. So
that's such an interesting.
Yeah, and it just works. The wheel just keeps on turning, you know. Now, if I don't clean this algae, which I cleaned it a couple weeks ago and had gone almost a month, I got literally over a ½ gallon of algae out of it, and the wheel will get a little slower when it gets so heavy. So I've been trying to do the partial harvest where I maybe do every other one of these, and you know, that way I don't end up scraping all the algae off, and then you end up getting like a bloom of algae on the glass, because now the nutrients are higher until that algae grows. So
yeah, well, before we go down in the basement, I want to see this this cichlid tank you got.
Oh yeah, so we have
courtyard.
A courtyard, and I ended up actually with this tank from a job. It was an old tank, and it sat around my shop, and I thought I need to do something with that. So I worked on the wife for probably a good year, and she let me put this cichlid tank out
let's
here.
Go out.
So this is my courtyard, or the upper man cave as I call it. I keep it about 65 degrees out here in the winter. It didn't have this greenhouse roof when we moved in. I take the ends off in the summer, so it's just whatever the temperature is all summer. That's why I chose the cichlids. They can handle it getting a little warm. And they're easy. They love Indiana hard water, so I literally drain half the water out down there once a month and hook up the hose and refill it and dechlorinate it, and very nice.
So what are the dimensions on this tank? It's a tall tank.
This is, 37 tall. It's 54 long and 30 wide, so it's about 263 gallons in volume for out here.
You call these sardine cichlids?
Yeah, they're Cyprichromis. There's a couple other different species, and but most of those are Cyprichromis. You could see the males get blue with the yellow tails. And
this is a beautiful tank too.
I've tried doing live plants. I refuse to do a 130-gallon water change with RO water, so we're to plastic plants. I tried everything, little trays with the the soil, and they just don't do well. So.
Well, beautiful tank out here. This is an awesome little space.
Yeah.
Do you want to go downstairs and see the lab?
You bet, you bet. So I was very into reptiles when my boys were young, and I've kind of gotten out of that and just have one terrarium with a few dart frogs and some neon day geckos. And during COVID, I kind of discovered planted tanks, and this was my first attempt, and I really love it.
That's fantastic. Beautiful. Yeah.
Plus, the neat thing about planted tanks is I've kind of adopted some of the tools. They really have a lot of tools with the planted curved scissors and different things, and they use like electric toothbrushes to get algae off of rocks, and you could do that in your saltwater tank.
Yeah.
But it's been interesting to learn the techniques and things. And
yeah, I like the escape. That's really cool. It's like a little bonsai tree in there.
Yeah, and I like bonsai trees and things, so that kind of worked out.
Well, let's go into the lab here.
So this is what I call my aqua lab. When we first moved in, I had a big Acropora tank down here that I did, and transitioned out of that, and you know, when the boys started playing baseball, and this became our reptile room. And now, since COVID, I redid it, and corals are getting so hard to get, I decided I need a collection of my favorite corals. So this is all brand new. It's just cycling, and obviously nothing in it. So
looks like you got some great equipment already set up on this thing. Can you take us through the sump?
Yeah, so I'm an acrylic guy, but I went glass everywhere this time, and just decided, you know, I know people like those dream box. Those things are a nightmare to me. All these baffles, and you're kind of backed into a corner, and if technology changes, so I was like, I want just an open sump, put my reef mat in. If something changes, I can switch it around, and my skimmer fits. And I just did decide to get a bioreactor because I'm not going to have a lot of rock, and I was a little worried about that. So. And then I have my little tank here. I like to do a little quarantining in when I get stuff, but it's mainly to do experiments and try different coral foods, and it's real easy to do it in a small volume and see the results as opposed to doing it in a, you know, hundreds of gallons reef tank. And
do you think the algae reactor is gonna be able to handle that tank?
Yes, big time. It's a little too much.
I love it.
It's fun, but
it's a pod farm in there for sure.
Yeah, it's a little overkill, but hey, no algae in the tank. So.
Yeah. I see you may have taken some inspiration. Maybe you use these in your builds with the aluminum stand.
Yeah, and I've seen it just around industrial stuff, but you know, Than's videos. Yep. And I love his setup, and there's, you know, I'm very meticulous. He's makes me look like a bum. He's so
he makes everybody look like a bum.
But I like things just so, and you know, I like to create little acrylic things. These just hold all my power supplies for my Ecotech lights, and I just like to keep things neat and at hand and easy to get to. And
I'm taking inspiration from that wall over there. So what's going in this tank over here? This smaller one.
This is going to be a little more of a grow out type thing. I haven't even programmed these new blade lights, but I'll have my racks in here and you know, lords and different things that I'm going to frag out of there. I can put in here, but these tanks are not really to farm. These are just for me to have a coral collection of corals I like. And
you don't see a microscope often in. Fish room like this.
Do you have to look at things?
Are you actively looking at things, or
yeah,
is that...
sometimes it's fun to see what's on a fish or a coral or what algae looks like under a microscope. So yeah, it's fun to mess around. Yeah, so I've been around in business for 32 years, so doing tanks with no live rock is a little new to me. I have vats at my office where I have live rock, and you know, I can bring a few pieces out to a new setup, and but this is my first foray into all, you know, non-live rock. And
Paul, your setup is awesome, and like I said, I can't wait to come back and check it out. But thanks for taking us on a little tour.
You're very welcome.
Appreciate it.
I want to thank Inmos for having me come speak at their frag swap. Also, kudos to those guys for putting on such a great show. Also, thanks to Paul for showing us all of his aquariums. He's got something really cool going there, and I'm excited to touch base with him in the future and maybe go see some of those high-end clients that he's got and their tanks.
If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments section below. I'd say go follow Paul on social media, but he is very anti-social media, which is something that I love about him. He's not out there trying to flaunt anything. He is just in this for pure hobby, and that's what we like the most. I've got another tank tour that I did while I was in Indianapolis, and I cannot wait to show you that one. We'll do that in the next video. Thanks for coming along, and make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell notification, and we'll see you in the next one.